Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. We're going to be talking about the internal talent marketplace and how to unlock game-changing workforce agility. So let me introduce you to our amazing panelists, and we have many of them. We're joined by Sandrine Berkopec, who's the Group Head of Digital HR Transformation at Veolia, Loïc Michel, as co-founder and CEO at 365 Talents, Jean Pelletier, Vice President of Digital Talent Transformation at Schneider Electric, Célia, Devinoy, Talent Development at Veolia, and last but certainly not least, Burak Vice President of Talent Analytics, Europe and Latin America at Ericsson. Hey everyone, how are you all? Thanks for joining us.
Very good.
Hello.
Hi everyone.
Thanks for joining us. I said to you backstage that I'll pick on you first, Burak, so I have to hold you to that. Firstly, let's just kick things off, because I noticed whenever I speak to people about internal talent marketplaces and what that is, I get a different answer for everyone that I speak to. So from your perspective, what is an internal talent marketplace and why should organizations invest in their own?
There are different thinking patterns about that, about internal talent marketplace or talent marketplace. The one that I like is a philosophy that to approach talent backed up with a really, really good platform that is pretty much matches the demand of a leader or a hiring manager to the needs of the talent on the ground. So it's kind of a basic kind of matching platform and a philosophy. But if you just double click on that, there are like so many advantages for a company that it makes it almost like a full-fledged talent approach at democratizing the whole talent approach of an organization. A few things, and Chris just stopped me when I'm just going too deeper into those headings. But then one of the headings is that obviously to increase the talent fluidity in the organization, right? Whenever you need a talent, wherever you need the talent, you create visibility. And then you create the opportunity, the platform to say people like, hey, I'm here and I can do that job. And the organization picks you up. Obviously, there is the benefits of this is exponential when you have a large organization in multi-country setting. So that talent fluidity, right time, right skill employees is very important. But another major thing, and another second order effect is that you put out the required skills and jobs out in a platform, and then you make the whole process a lot transparent, then you increase the trust of your employees, of your people, to the organization. And when their trust increase with the fairness perception, then their belonging and engagement increases, everything as the output increases. So the transparency helps with fairness and belonging. A third one, it's a very major one as well, because you're making the skills for the jobs that you're looking for, the talent you're looking for, very transparent. Then you're giving the organization the signal, like these are the skills that you need to be able to do that job. So that means that transparency ignites people or inspires people to learn and then develop themselves. So there's an amazing second order effect of having that talent marketplace, that everybody, that the whole organization mobilizes towards self-development. And if you enable that development, then you become this high momentum company that actually develops towards future capability needs. So these are the three main headings. If you ask me to repeat them, I can't. Does that make sense so far?
So Burak, it makes perfect sense, and let me add to that. So why did we start when it's Schneider Electric? The interesting thing is we started for a very traditional reason, like retention. Like, let's get our arms around retention. And as we watch the external market factors influence the labor market, the employees are now in control, right? Before it was, I would say, a top down, I'm going to post a job, and you didn't worry about candidates. So today it's more competitive than ever. So making sure that you can keep the talent you have was one of the number one reasons we went after it. Very traditional. The second thing I would say is our employee value prop, which I think you need one today to compete and present yourself in the marketplace, always talked about empowerment. And you touched a little bit on that. And what I would say, this is the first time we've actually animated empowerment. We would talk the talk, but now we walk the walk. We literally have put a platform in front of employees that allows them to be empowered to search around. The third piece that I would add is, this is the first time we've brought AI to a front office experience for employees, at least in Schneider Electric. Super disruptive to HR. I would say HR's role has changed. Usually they were a connector before. The AI is the connector now. And HR has now become what I would call the conflict manager. And I'm sure we'll talk about many of those experiences later on in the discussion.
Maybe I can add just one thing. And I think Célia wanted to add something also. So sorry if I interrupted.
No problem.
No,
go on, if you want.
Okay. Actually, I like the definition of what a talent marketplace is, and an internal talent marketplace is, even if it sounds a little bit weird, because we can ask ourselves if a talent can be a good that can be sold on a marketplace like on Amazon. I found the term itself a little bit weird, but what I like behind the notion is what it describes. So it's exactly what Burak said. It's fluidity, mobility, openness, transparency, and in my opinion, it's what describes just perfectly a good talent experience in general. And I think it's where everyone is heading today. And from I would say a product marketing standpoint, I can definitely say that the internal talent marketplace is really well defined in the space. So we have talent management, pieces and suites, and you have the internal talent marketplace on top. It's really well defined, and it's pretty handy to know that we can be put in these different boxes. Célia,
yeah, no problem. In Veolia, we have a definition of it. Maybe that is slightly different. We don't really use the term talent marketplace. I think we are more speaking about of a talent platform to boost different things, to boost careers on the one hand, and also to boost our business. So we are facing two different challenges: business challenges and human resources challenges. And this kind of platform is a way really to match the profile of people with the business opportunities we have, so as to boost globally the performance and the performance of the company and the careers of people. So it's a wonderful matching tool that we are putting in place, and it's true that it's even more strengthful when it's fully extended, and that's what we are experiencing in this period. In Veolia, we have a purpose, in the company, and this purpose is linked, of course, to the ecological transformation that we are all facing today. And in our type of activities, we are really willing to be very agile and very quick in ensuring that we can find the good people at the right place for the right mission to make sure that we meet with our challenges. And for us, it's a wonderful tool, this marketplace, this wonderful booster to ensure that we can do that in the best way. And at the same time, we have really the feeling that we answer the will of our employees, of people that want to make sure that they participate, to the cause that we are working for. That's the way we see it in the company within Veolia currently.
That's really interesting. So you're really kind of promoting it as a direct connection between your values, your purpose,
exactly,
people, and using that as the mechanism to connect them with the organization.
And these two reasons really are at the heart, at the core of the why we decided to go for such an interface.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Why do you think? Interested to ask you this, Sandrine. Why do you think making these opportunities accessible is no longer optional, but really fundamental to organizations? Because in the past it was sort of a nice to have. Now it seems to be sort of table stakes to have something like this in place in your organization.
Yeah, at Veolia, we are convinced that it's like a must-have today.
And when we start to listen to our employees, this is the first steps. When you just listen what they said, they are, let's say, expecting more transparency, more visibility and opportunities internally that Veolia could bring. It was the results that came out from the group engagement survey. So look at what is available, what we could do, how we could develop our careers. And after, when you look at the business, when with managers, they're expecting, okay, guys, I have my team, but I don't know which competencies I have in my team. So what is a skills map? Which forces I have, strength I have, and I could develop. So it's like a match that we say between profiles and opportunities, and all about at the end about the employee experience to say, okay, guys, I would like to develop myself. I want to be connected to my organization, to my company. I want to be part of my company and to see how I could develop, how I could bring. So we are touching also some items related to the performance, collective performance. I think we have the right expertise, the right skills at the right time, the right moment. And at the end to see, okay, we could develop ourselves all together. And so it's a must-have today, a fundamental right, as you say. And also there is some, let's say, some equity behind there, because it's like with this kind of app with IA, you could, let's say, highlight some hidden talents. So, for example, you could not only have some people that have already some networks internally and that could develop themselves, but you can also help other guys, other employees that don't have this and that have the right skills that we could encourage and develop internally. So it's like an opportunity really for them to be highlighted and to contribute to the performance also of the company.
Yeah. A few people in the chat have asked around sort of implementation, how long does this take, challenges of implementation keeps coming up. I'm going to kind of fast forward to a question which I was going to ask later to Eugene. Can you share with everyone the implementation of your ITM? What did that look like in terms of speed, agility? What advice would you give to people listening?
The first thing about the implementation is what we did is we did an experiment and we launched to global HR, and they could see the experience we were bringing forth. The second thing we did is we started to do a country by country rollout. That in itself had its challenges. And then when COVID came, we leaned into the ability for the AI to bring us mentorships and projects and democratize the ability to access development opportunities when working from home. So in April of 2020, we just did a full blast and went global. So we started with this little inch method and COVID came and we just said, forget it, we pivot, let's go. So that was one thing we did. Now, let's not underestimate. It's wonderful to get a platform out there. I've already mentioned it is super important that you understand it's very disruptive to HR. You change the roles in HR. So that was the second thing is HR needs to get ready for AI. And I think the third thing that I would leave everyone with is the change management around this was immense. We had 5 mind shifts in Schneider Electric. One was transparency, what Burak has already talked about. One is about, we had to rewrite some policies. We had a 3-year, 3-month transition policy. We had to sunset that. Again, experiences that you were matched with, you do not need manager approval. That's a total disruption for Schneider Electric and HR. The other thing is all interested candidates should get feedback. We have not nailed that one so well. Because the AI works so fast, right? So we're working to improve the feedback, but I would say it's incumbent upon the organization to make sure that the candidate, right, the person gets the feedback they want. And then the last one is discretionary effort. We have come out with a global position that 10 to 15% of your discretionary time can be spent on these development actions or matches that come out of the market. Those 5 things, we're still working on getting that sorted, I would say, in an even way across the globe. In China, it was seen a little bit as an upset. You wouldn't want to say you had 10 to 15% discretionary effort because it was seen as you weren't busy enough. So that's an employee view. And I would say in India, hierarchically, it was how you can't go work for someone else. I need you on my team. So those are some of the things you have to watch out for. So the platforms are beautiful, but the implication of a launch is immense. So do not undersell what it's going to take to get that done.
Oh, wow. That was an amazing answer there. So many things to dive into from that perspective. Before I actually ask any more questions, let me hear from the rest of the panelists, because I've got so many questions running through my mind. Anyone want to add to that?
Yeah, well, maybe I can go, and then like you're gonna probably add on to that with your customers as well. I think there are two things that I look at it. One is the whole change management with the leaders, and the other one is like the pure technical integration. And I think my humble advice is that do have a good integration partner. Do not try to do that on your own, because you're going to probably get a platform like a Gloat or an Eightfold. Those are the two main ones, and there are many others popping up with good offerings. But then implementation partner is important, so that Gloat was talking about around 3 to 4 months time, which is like amazing for a big company. So that technical piece is really important. We have crashed and burned a little bit on that phase. The other one is the obvious change management with the leaders and employees themselves. And Jean touched upon that as well. I think there are two sides of that. One is that some of the leaders are really hungry for that, because they know there's somewhere in the organization there's good talent that we can early on get in our teams, and then start develop them with 20% of their time, all full time. And some of the leaders, they just don't know what they don't know. So for them, you need to provide a really good product day one, like an iPhone moment. They were like, this is amazing. We didn't know we needed this, but now we've seen it. It's amazing. And some of them were like, we were waiting for this. It's great. So you need to change manage those two obvious leaders. But also, I think on the other hand, from an employee perspective, then you also need to be pushing the leaders, giving the signal it's okay to look for other jobs or development pieces there as well. I think all of that will come, requires a really, really serious program management there.
Amazing.
It's a tough job.
It's a tough one. Well, one of the challenges that Jean mentioned, I'll come to you, Loïc, is around how do we kind of get over that problem of managers hoarding talent in organizations, and get over that and shift from being talent guards to talent mobilizers, if you want to put it that way.
I think Sandrine wanted to share on this experience. Sandrine, do you want to go on this one?
Yeah. So just regarding, I totally agree with what Burak said regarding, to make this kind of project. It's a real project. It's easy. It's an app. It's easy to use, etc. But to be efficient, you need to have a strong methodology to make it happen. So it was key in our experience with the project. And so what we've done also is that to assess, where we are we ready to go? And before starting, for example, the project, what we've done is that we say, hey guys, we need to reflect a little bit. Maybe there are some prerequisites to have and so on. So we have worked before, and after we have said to our provider, go, we are ready, we can launch the project. And after we have also included, let's say, this is part of the change management part, some employees, managers, HR, different reasons, different departments, cross worldwide from the company to share what could be their expectations. And after all along the project, we've made some feedbacks regarding the design and after how we deployed and so on. And I would say in the change management, the more challenge, the biggest challenge was to convince HR first. And then after they went, we have a new role, or this app with IA, what does it do? What our job will change, or how we will support employees and so on. So it was a key challenge to overcome. And after that, we have worked a lot with the manager population, say, hey guys, you will keep also your competencies, but it's normal to share. And the overall company will take advantage of this. But it was a strong challenge to take or to undertake. And after that, we work all together to say, okay, what are the challenges and what we could do. And after, it's about animation. If you want that to keep the momentum all along the project and after the project, just to identify, okay, some good champions. And at Veolia, we call them insiders, not only HR, but also some people coming from the business that are convinced that the app is good, that it could bring a lot of value, and to count on this network locally. So it was very to make it visible, show some concrete statistics also. Okay, this is the benefits of the app. And after, to organize some animation, some facilitations to make sure everybody knows it and everybody wants to make it and to move forward. And the sponsors, Sandrine, don't forget our sponsors. There were so important in the process. Yeah, exactly. And we had, for the sponsors, it was very important for our project, not only HR sponsors, but also sponsors from the business. It was like our key conviction to make it happen, not make it an HR project, not at all. It's about employee experience. So it's cross, it's transversal.
When we, sorry, Chris. No, I was just saying that everyone is telling the same story. It's a journey. It starts kind of fast and in an agile mode, and then it's definitely a journey that takes more time, more stakeholders, more sponsorship in the long run. So actually, when we started working with Veolia, it was all about how can we implement something really, really fast with a lot of agility, so that we don't get into a too complex and too long HR project, because we know how they look like and how they're considered by the people usually. So we wanted to have a faster and a better and stronger impact. That was just the beginning of the journey. So it's always the case when we work with other customers like SocGen or Allianz, they always start with a lot of agility at the beginning, and we help them with the platform and the tech that we provide. But then it takes time, and it's a journey to start from a skill focus to becoming a talent-first company in the end.
Amazing. Jean, did you find the same thing in your team? Was there a lot of transformation had to go on within your own internal team first? Was that quite common?
Absolutely. And again, wonderful to be amongst, fellow talent marketers here, because Sandrine, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? It's not an HR project. Loïc, you said the same thing. So we needed to step back a little bit. But when I think about talent hoarding in an experience, like here's a real life example. We had an individual that within 2 months' time had 3 people matched off his team.
Oh, wow.
So let's think about this transformation in talent hoarding and how this looks, right? So the first person to go off, we've kind of been like, okay, we're not thinking too much about it. The second person, I'm starting to hear from the manager. And when the third person came, I absolutely heard from the manager. So let me talk about traditionally what happens, right? We want to shut it down right away, add all these bureaucracy into the design. No, we will not do that. It is an employee platform. We don't go out there and mess up LinkedIn, do we? Right? So if you're going to bring an internal marketplace, you got to kind of govern by the same principles. So there's a lot of on the phone work, I think, for HR. And I'll give you the example. So I personally called the HRBP and said, listen, we're not going to shut down the platform. We're not going to design rules into it. But here's 3 things that may be going on. 1, was this an underserved group when it came to talent development? Maybe we unlock the key. 2, is there something we need to look at in the structure of that job that makes people want to come in for a short period of time and leave? And 3, do we have a manager issue? So HR has to start to think about being, like I said, a conflict manager consultant versus a connector of talent. We completely flipped it. So we don't let managers hoard talent, but we can't be silent partners. So we brought in science, which was the internal marketplace, and now the art and the finesse rests with human resources to kind of help that change management along. And it's not like, hey, we did the change management in 60 days. This is an endeavor that is changing how we work in Schneider.
And I would add, it's a real shift of mindset. For example, we have developed different use cases, not only internal mobility, but also short-term assignment to develop and encourage collaboration within the company. And it was not so easy to share, to say, okay, we would like to develop this kind of practice, at Veolia. Okay, you could go into one department in another country. You will share your expertise during 3 months, 3 weeks, whatever. And after that, it was not so easy to say, hey guys, okay, it's normal to share your expertise, because at the end, it is a global organization that will take advantage of it. So we have developed these different use cases. I just want to reflect with my career. Another one, focus on mobility. But after also another one, I'm good in my job. I don't want to change, but I would like to discover. I would like to share my knowledge, whatever, my know-how. And it's also about, okay, we are all employees, how we could connect. So it's also an app that helps to connect people at the end, beyond expertise and skills. So, but it's a shift of mindset, because also managers have some, not fears, but some expectations also. And so we need to manage to find the right balance to explain.
There's
a massive shift.
Chris,
And at the same time, sorry, go.
Célia, do you want to go first?
No, okay. I just wanted to say that at the same time, it is important always for us to remind the managers that there are some courtesy rules to respect, and that it's not because we have integrated some intelligence and a powerful thing in the system that we forget all the mobility rules that exist in the company. So we also have to reassure people regularly about the fact that it's a plus, but the courtesy rules, they are there, they exist, and the process is always respected for mobility. It's just an opening of the windows of the possibilities, the visibility offered to people about their careers, what they can do, what they want to do. But the rules are there, and they are respected.
It's interesting. There's like perceived value, right? In the past, it was you're valued of how many people that you managed. I manage this many people, I'm more important, right? Whereas now we're flipping the dynamic to actually the more people within your team that now leave your team and develop throughout the business is a great sign of you being a great manager, right? And it could be that, or it could be, as Jean said earlier, that they are a bad manager. And there are people that are leaving the team. So we also need to understand both sides.
And actually, it works the other way around, because being a manager of a silos team of 3 people, it's maybe not as good as being a manager of large project with people coming from many different entities, so that you learn from them in your teams and you start engaging with other business units also, and not only with yours. So I think it's a lot of value for managers also to be able to work in this more short-term assignments mode.
Yeah. So I think Jean mentioned this earlier, Loïc, and I know you've got some experience here. One of the issues is cultural, because the way this is adopted in Asia and India, etc., there's different, different cultures will, it's even more important in maybe in Asia to be seen as a leader, as a manager with all of these team members, for example. And the idea of your team members leaving is terrifying to do that. How are you addressing this challenge then of working in a global environment? Because most of our listeners have global remits. So multiple languages within the platform.
Yeah, actually, starting with languages is a good start, because it's not always easy to manage this skills information, the skills data you can have in your company with one single point of truth when you're not speaking the same language. So you have to be agile. You have to leverage technology again. So AI can help you doing that. And I can tell, as a European company, we started working with global companies with big European footprints, with from day one 3 different languages to be able to serve. So Spanish, English, French, and German, for example. If you add some other alphabets, it's getting really complicated. But technology, if it's well designed and well implemented in your talent marketplace, can definitely help you with this. It's what we call the Skill Studio at 365 Talent, so that you can handle this complexity. That's just for the language, which is not just a translation issue. It's way more complicated because it's AI. So you need to have your matching abilities of your talent marketplace working in different languages with no challenges. On the other hand, for cultural differences, I think it's probably, again, a change management thing. connecting to your rules and your global rules, if you are a centralized organization with global rules, should make it kind of okay. But I think then you need to adapt your terminology, and probably in some organizations, the way people are developing themselves or engaging with opportunities is different. So I think that's where you have to adapt your HR rules. And that's not just a matter of talent marketplace. I think all your processes have to be adapted in this context.
And Chris, I think I also want to talk about a little bit on the AI side of these things, because one thing that is very strong for me is that the experimentation that Jean mentioned. I think if you're a big global company, it's really good to find a unit that is 3,000-4,000 people across a few geographies, and then have that as your sandbox. And probably it's good to start with easier matchings like mentor-mentee matchings or project matchings, rather than start with full-on job matchings. So I think, but having that experiment sandbox also will give you an understanding of the limitations and the first experiences or perceptions of AI. So we still are talking about AI as a supervised AI, right? It looks at the past data and then looks what works and then kind of implements that, which has a huge concerns ethically about bias. But still, let's just assume it's better than human biases and eliminates them. The first few interactions of the hiring managers and also talent with that AI stack ranking is really important. So in the first few weeks, if the hiring manager still goes in and then sees really not relevant talent or skill sets matched to the jobs, then they become really fierce and adoption falls. You can either have a really good communication saying that this is AI, it's learning, give it some time, or you can just have the sandbox work really well and then go with a decent launch. But nobody should underestimate that first few instances, the experiences of the hiring manager and the talent comes across to those platforms and the user interfaces. That's critical moments.
Yeah, you're so right, because we've all had experiences where we've used different software and tools, and if it doesn't serve you, you probably don't go back in ever again.
Yeah.
You go in there, you're like, oh, this isn't for me, right? Whereas even if you did have a very good communication, like you're saying we're building it, it's in progress, it's still very highly unlikely that individual is going to see value in going back into the system and the platform.
Yeah,
because we're used to consumer grade experiences now.
Exactly.
If you don't like it, we just delete the app.
So it's interesting. I will tell you, it changed our hiring strategy in HR. So as I have openings on my team come up, when I needed to replace somebody that had moved on, right? I needed to hire a marketeer in my group, right? So there's a little bit of marketing that goes along with an open talent market. It's like offer management. We are selling to the organization. We have to bring that excellence, right, of end user experience. So Burak, I'm with you on that one, right? You have to create a good experience. You have to listen. You have to be customer oriented, and you have to add in the features and changes that people are asking for. They don't come back. So it sounds like a wonderful world, but you have to constantly listen. And I found I needed to bring marketing expertise into an HR team.
And maybe I can add from a AI-driven talent marketplace platform provider myself. I can add that we have a big responsibility in this change and in this communication at the beginning, so that people get immediately involved in the process and understand what's in there for me and why is it working this way and so on. So we are keen on investing time, and even our tech product team are invested, and they invest their own time in working along the customer's team, including some marketers in the HR team, like Jean can say. And when we work with these people, we usually want to innovate in the way we present the things, and we want to definitely explain what's going on and why it's working. So we've got this night workshop that we call the AI Icebreaker, which is part of the onboarding process when we work along with the customers. And it's definitely serving this objective of of explaining why AI is a good tool for the HR and globally for the people and globally for the company in this process.
Mm-hmm. I think you have to break it down, right? Because if you come to leaders and managers at that high level, they're like, what's in it for me? What does that all sounds great, but what's in it for me? How does that work? And that's where that sort of that marketing piece comes in. And we've all seen sort of that intersection of HR and marketing get closer and closer together. So Jean, it was great that you mentioned the fact that you hired someone specifically full-time in your team to work with you to make sure you're marketing those things, because that's what it is. We need to create that experience, right? That, as Burak said, that consumer grade experience, which both internally in the app, but also in our communication on how we promote that in the organization. I think we've got a lot better over the last 2 years, right? Since the pandemic, because we had no other choice but to step up our game in terms of our marketing and our comms, because that's the only way we could reach people at the time. And I think that's going to be more and more an important part in how we do this in organizations, because having the technology is one thing, but we all know that can fall completely flat if you don't have the transformational piece and your communications completely aligned. And this is an ongoing process. There's no end date to this. This is continuous. For everyone thinking there's sort of an end date of this is going to take this long, it's going to be ongoing as well. Anything else? Anything to that question? That's quite a big one.
Now, maybe one additional comment, Chris. Also, I think that this kind of app also would, let's say, request some also investment from our capabilities afterwards to support this kind of app. Because, for example, we had some HR guys telling us, okay, you will encourage the demand with this kind of app, but are we able to make it? HR, we are not staff HR and HR in some countries we are very little teams, so small teams. So how do we do? Is the corporate will help us? It can, when you have short-term assignment, for example, in another country. Okay, there are some items around. Let's say visa, immigration, all about HR things, legal things, fiscality to embrace. And sometimes HR in the different countries or business units are saying, okay, guys, but maybe we are not enough staff or not enough prepared to support employees and to support the demand that this kind of app will increase, unfortunately. So it's also a matter of, okay, how we could make it. And there are some organizational also issues behind to make it concrete and to make it alive.
Yeah. Burak, a few people asked, and I think is something you're doing some work on now, is are you already in a position where you're using some of this data to predict future skills and talent needs in your organization? Also, Gina, we'd love to hear from you on that question as well.
Well, yes, we are, and I have the luxury to have people analytics team with me as well. And hats off to Matt Harrison at Ericsson here, amazing data scientist. What we are looking at, and I think it's wonderful to merge that with a talent marketplace, but you can do that even without a full-fledged talent marketplace in place. What we are looking at is the overall talent fluidity. So which are the roles are feeding which roles in a broad scale, and then you almost can see the migration of your talent throughout the roles. Then we match that with the future capability needs of the organization, and then I think it's a segue to the hot topic of skills. Then we were trying to now map out what kind of skills, neighboring skills, will be enabling those future skills in 3 years' time that we're going to need. So a specific engineering skill like cloud infrastructure. So we're needing them now. We're going to need them a lot more. So what are the feeder roles for those engineering roles? And then what are the skill sets that were feeding or became best cloud infrastructure solution architects? We already have that data, which is amazing for us to have. We're just plugging that in, or we're planning to plug that into open talent markets, so that actually we're going to nudge and encourage people to get those developments with these 20-25% of project assignments with a cloud infrastructure project. So yes, we're using it. You don't have to have open talent market in place, but it enables you to actually execute and enable your people. I don't know if it was the answer that you were looking for.
Yeah, no, exactly. I love the fact that I'm glad you gave the specific example, right, of that role that you could look at 3 years and work your way back into the talent marketplace and figure out how can we nudge that and encourage that early on as well. Yeah, it's great.
I think maybe on this one, just to add a little thing, I personally see a big and a real connection between the use of a talent marketplace internally, because it's consumer experience, it's interactive, it generates a lot of engagement, so it generates a lot of data. So you have a good talent experience platform, then it generates interesting data you can leverage in the end into your talent intelligence processes and your talent analytics processes. So I think there is kind of a link, and it's interesting to connect them both. And if you let the people, when we introduce the subject, present themselves in their own words, in their own terms, and leveraging AI so that it makes sense in the end and it matches the offer and demand in real time, then you grab way more information and way more data than if you just structured the information first. So I think there is some dynamic here that can be leveraged in the end when you do your scenarios, when you do your planification, when you do your skill gap analysis, because you have a richness that you couldn't have before.
And just to add to that, I think, so when we put it in practice, right, I think of the three-legged stool. A talent marketplace was the voice of the employee. We've never had such a robust inventory of our employee skills before. And why? Because there was a WIFM in it, right? It was helping their development. We got out of the way. AI, they're starting to develop an upskill. The second piece of that is what the enterprise needs to run. And as Burak said, you don't need an open talent market. We have a wonderful analytics team. And of course, our appetite is pretty much insatiable, right? So what was great is the open talent market filled that employee inventory into us, right? There's a what's in it for them. So employees are encouraged to keep their own, I would say, profile up to date. The third piece that we're struggling with, and we're still trying to work on, and it depends on what talent market offer you have or your own, I would say, outreach, is market data. So we need market insights. So again, at the beginning of the call, we talked about bringing transparency to the employee. We need to knit those three things together: the talent marketplace, which is the voice of the employee, the enterprise job architecture driven by skills, right, which is the voice of the business, and then we need the voice of the market, right, which is the hot skill, which is waxing, which is waning, on the rise, on the down low. And we're working to unpack that. So we've made some progress, but it's not just dependent on a talent market. I think in order to predict and see the future, you need those three key components.
I love that. Let's clip that for a clip, everyone. I love the break, and that third one is the most challenging, like you're saying, right? Because also depending on what country, what region, legally, even to get hold of that data in certain countries, right, is impossible.
It's brutal. Brutal. It is brutal. But you know what? There are a lot of smart people out there. Our people analytics team, like I said, they are amazing. We are always ethical. We are always on board with what needs to be done. But technology is also moving so fast. So there are insights that we could share. Our biggest thing, let's go back to the point on transparency, is how much of that data do you let the employee see?
That's true.
Right? That's a crazy thing, is what if you brought market data around rewards to an employee that said, wait a minute, these are the skills that are valued in the marketplace and what we're willing to pay for. Now look at your profile and where are your gaps? Are you on the hot seat? Do you need to go develop? And then that's another way to encourage. How do they go develop within the organization? That's where talent management steps in and says, here's our offer for you.
Wow. That's super interesting. Imagine we got to that level of transparency, right, where employees could even see in your competitors where they sit and where they stand in terms of their skills gap, their compensation, etc. That would be very, very interesting to see how that will play out, because there's a lot of companies that say we want full transparency, but then they don't really have the right, reward systems and platform and things in place that really say that they back that up. To say that they back that up on other end. Before we wrap up, because we're coming towards the end, there's so many things we just jumped into. Probably people listening are pretty overwhelmed with things that are like, where do I even start? So I want to kind of jump and throw that question. What advice would you give to people listening of where they should start? What advice would you give them to get started on this journey? Because I think we spoke about a lot of things, and many of you are kind of further down the line, but for many people that are just starting on this journey. So what advice would you give to them?
I've got one piece of advice, but really quick. I won't answer to the where to start, but when to start. And I can say we have to start now. We don't have time, in this context of war for talent, skills gaps everywhere. It's not a 3 years program you have to think about. I think it's something you can definitely implement now, or start to implement now. So that would be just my answer on the when, not on the where.
Progress over perfection. You will not be perfect on the way out. So you do exactly what Burak said, is you find test cases and test groups, and the examples I gave of, you don't shut the system down, you learn how to shift the mindset in the organization to move forward. It's like you said, Chris, the iPhone came out and changed the world. We can't take it back. You can't put this genie back in the bottle. So you learn to live with it. It is our new normal. So progress over perfection. You will never be perfect. It's such a large change.
But also, I think some of the organizations need to take a good hard look at, is this the right thing for me right now? So if you're like a really decent 800 people company, mid-size in 2 countries, maybe you want to focus on your employee experience first. Maybe you want to focus on something first rather than getting a full-fledged open talent market or internal talent marketplace in place. So I think some of the companies need to prioritize. If you're a big company, multi geographies, and then you are facing a skills gap and a difficulty with your talent fluidity, internal talent marketplace is for you. You have to start now. But if you're not at that size and then you have other problems in employee experience journey, then maybe it's good to focus on those things first.
Thanks, Burak, to combine the who and the when. I was just trying. It doesn't work for everybody, for sure.
But it's not so easy because, as Burak said, it's like a question of priorities. Okay, there is always something to do before this kind of project, employee experience, and so on. And I think if you have the intuition and the conviction that there is something to do, but go ahead concretely and give you an opportunity to make it happen. If you are not positive, if you don't want to go, you will never do things at the end. So, and maybe to start with, I would recommend start with the guys internally that want to make it also. So you find some not ambassadors, but there's employees or colleagues.
Right?
Exactly, some peers that would like really to make it, and after you work in teams as a team, and after with a team you do many things. So I think, and you can start small and become big. So I would say start small, but go ahead, keep convinced, and it will succeed.
Amazing. Célia, last but not least, have they left you much to say, Célia?
No, just maybe a word saying from our experience within Veolia, the way, Sandrine, you managed the quality of the pilot, the choice of the people who would be in the job domains with which we would start. This step was really so important to make sure that we could prove good results and use those success stories that we have created on the pilot to go further. So this pilot step on a very, very limited number of people for us, because we have more than 200,000 people in the company today. So we started with a pilot on 2,000 people only. This step was so important. And the way and the intense work that was done during the pilot to make it work and succeed has been really key, because now we are still surfing on all the good results we have had for now to be able to deploy at the larger scale of Veolia today. And that's a huge task. So the pilot was so key.
Amazing. Well, thanks. I feel like we need to do a series on this topic because way too much to get into in 1 hour. And for all of you those that listen, I know there's a lot of questions in the chat that we couldn't get to as well. But hopefully I'll forward that on to the panelists. But also at the same time, make sure right now you go and connect with all of our panelists on LinkedIn and connect with them and also you probably saw in the chat we put a link to Burak's Substack around some of these topics. So click on that link there. Definitely check out some of his work. We're all on this journey together as well, right? No one solved this, and there's always going to be challenges. I think the key, great advice, get started. I think Jean mentioned earlier, right? You had this sort of 2-3 year plan, and then COVID hit, and you did it within a week. All right, let's just go full blown and figure it out along the way. I think we've all realized that we're a lot more resilient and adaptable than we thought we were, but beforehand and now. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. Big thank you to all of the panelists for sharing their advice and their experience. Thank you obviously to our friends at 365 Talents for helping us bring the panel together. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you again soon. But bye from now. See you everyone. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.